Alright guys, today's video is going to be slightly different to normal. I want you to sit back and relax and enjoy the next 12 minutes or so. And if you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button. Watch to the end and let me know what you think. Thanks guys. This is a Porsche 911, recognised by many as one of the all-time greatest sports cars. This car will do a 0 to 60 in a sub 5 seconds with a top speed of 177 miles an hour. It's a prestige, iconic sports car that's barely changed in the last 60 years and is recognised by many as one of the best sports cars ever made. So if I own this, why on earth do I own this? This is an 80s Super Mini known to rust, be owned by old ladies and boy racers, and this is my love story for the Vauxhall Nova / the Opel Corsa A. So you might be thinking, where did this love story start? Well, we need to rewind back to 2002. Grand Theft Auto Vice City had just been released on PS2. Reality TV was taking the world by storm, and Aston Martin had finally returned to the Bond franchise with Aston Martin Vanquish. What's significant about 2002 for me is my mum met my now stepdad. So back then, I just started to get a bit of a love for cars. Not much, but I did appreciate them. Now, he used to race in Autograss Class 2. Now, back then, and even today, it was dominated by Nova 1.3s. They were readily available and they were one of the quickest of the class. There was the occasional Fiesta and Micra, but it was pretty much all Novas back then. I remember thinking Novas were crap until the first time I went in his. Now, bearing in mind, these cars are stripped out. They've got no windows, no interior, and they're running about 80-90 horsepower. They probably weigh 500-600 kilos max. So very light cars with not a bad power to weight ratio. I sat in what would be the passenger area. There wasn't a seat. And he took me down the test track in it. And I was blown away just by how quick it was in first and second gear. This started my love interest in the Vauxhall Nova. Fast forward a couple of years, so 2003, 2004, a friend of the family bought a Nova GTE to turn into a Grasser. Sacrilege now, but very common back then. Now, this was a completely standard black Mark 1 GTE with all the side skirts, all the trim. Up until that point, I'd never really noticed sporty Novas. Yes, I'd seen them on the track, but I've never really taken any kind of serious interest in them. I didn't realise the GTE GSI models were much different. And when I first saw this up close with the iconic GTE grille badge and the iconic side skirts, I just fell in love. I thought, oh, that looks really nice. It really does make the car look so much better. So I was about 13 then, and from that day I decided I must have one. A scary fact for you, when this was new, it was probably worth about 100 times more than your average Nova back then. Absolutely nuts. So fast forward another few years, I'm now 17. I passed my driving test and I get my first Nova. It wasn't quite the Nova I had in mind. It was a 5-door for a start and it was a diesel. But I didn't realise diesel Novas, particularly the turbo models, were pretty lively. So I got this 5-door TD Nova off my granddad. He gave me it for free, so I couldn't complain. And I quickly went to the internet and discovered you could wind the boost up, adjust the fuel pump, and make them go pretty well. So I put a straight through pipe on it, turned the turbo pressure up to about 23-24 psi, had an internal boost gauge. I welded the blow-off valve up, did a few little mods like that, and it went pretty well. I would say it was at least 100 horsepower. To say it went pretty well was an understatement. It actually flew for what it was. Anyway, being 17, inexperienced and a bit of a knob, I ended up putting it in the ditch 6 weeks later. It was winter, it was very icy, and I just wasn't driving to the conditions. So that was the end of my TD Nova. I was absolutely bloody gutted. But silver lining, I had one, knew the potential, and I was then adamant I would get another. So it's 2007. Novas are getting a bit rare now, particularly TD models, and I had my heart set on a Nova SX TD. Now these were like a bit like an SR. They were a sportier model, the sportiest diesel model you could get. They had like nice red and grey interiors and a few SR features. They had a rev counter, for example, a few things like that. So there was a little bit nicer than the standard Merit. I managed to find one after looking for 6 months. It was a bit rotten. Well, very rotten. I spent the next few years basically restoring the full car. It had new sills, arches, doors. It had various engines, various gearboxes, and I slowly made it better and better and better, to the point where it had a full respray. It's kind of been put back to original looking, but it was a 1700 engine. It had a T25 Garrett turbo. It had fuel pump mods, and it went pretty well. I never did get it dyno, but we'd estimate around 130 horsepower. It was fairly lively for what it was, but was now at the point where I needed it to go quicker to do what I wanted it to do. And if I'm honest, without destroying it, I couldn't really do that back then, especially. What it really needed to make it go quicker was a petrol engine conversion, and I love diesel Novas. They're really rare, and to do that would be sacrilege. So I decided the best thing I could do would be to sell it and get another one. So fast forward a few months, I sell it, I buy a Nova rolling shell. I put an XE in it, a C20 XE. Well, actually, it was a 20 XE. Have it for a few months. It's pretty quick, don't get me wrong. Good giggle. Used to hit limiter in 5th gear. Not many cars do that. But yeah, it wasn't quick enough. So I decided I want something a bit different. I want a V6. So I shoehorned an X25 V6 in it out of a Vectra V6. Now that sounded awesome. It went really well. It had a few little mods and I loved it. However, it really didn't handle very well. I did loads of things to it, but I never got it right. At this point, it's like 2014. I'm still living at home with parents, and they've kind of said to me, look, Dan, you can't have 2 cars, because I had a practical daily at the time and this. I ain't got the space. So you need to sell it. So I thought, I know, best of both worlds, I'll get a Subaru Impreza. Quick and practical. Well, didn't last long. 3 months later, I needed another Nova in my life. So I managed to get my current Nova SR off a friend. It's a non-runner, 2-litre converted, and it was a bit of a GTE rep. Now, this car has had a lot of work again. It's had various bits and bobs done to it over the years, and eventually I put a 2-litre turbo engine in it out of a Calibra. So it's now a C20 lat. It's 300 horsepower. Now back to the original idea of the video. My Porsche, this beautiful car here, is lovely. It drives fantastic. It's old enough to still be mechanical, but new enough to be modern. It's got airbags, it's got aircon, it's got all your creature comforts. It's a safe, reliable, fast car. Makes me smile every time I drive it. But the Nova is something else. I go down the road in this, and most people, believe it or not, don't even look at it. The Nova, lots of people look at it. I get lots of waves. This is quick, don't get me wrong. The Nova takes your face off. This is subtle. The Nova, honestly, from 30 to 100 mile an hour, I genuinely don't think there's many cars on the road that will beat it. Bear in mind, it's 300 horsepower and it weighs like 800 kilos. It's nuts power to weight ratio. This is like 320 horsepower and it weighs 1350 kilos. Do you get my drift? Yes, this can put the power down. Yes, this can out corner it. Yes, this can possibly outbrake it. But when you're in the perfect moment and somebody pulls up next to you, for example, and you're doing 30, 40 mile an hour and you just open that throttle up on that Nova, I can assure you there's not many cars on the road that will keep up with it. And the smile it puts on your face is incredible. That's all I can say. It's absolutely amazing. You've probably seen from my recent videos, I've just taken it to Santa Pod. I raced 8 cars and won 8 races. Now, I don't want to blow my own trumpet. I'm not the best driver in the world, but the car did it. I put some slicks on it. It hooked up and just went. Very different to the road. It wheel spins a lot more on the road, but on that grippy track, racing things like M3s and modern Golf R's and stuff like that, it annihilated them and embarrassed them. And that is why I personally think my Vauxhall Nova is a better car than this, what would have been 70, 80 grand Porsche 911. Yes, I love this car, and in a lot of ways it's better, but the Nova makes me smile more than any car I've ever driven. And for that reason, I will never sell it, and it's always going to remain close in my heart. I couldn't talk about my favourite car without going for a drive in it at the end of the video. So like I said at the start, very different video to normal. I've not done any mechanical repairs. It's purely been me talking about my favourite car, which is the Vauxhall Nova. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Your comments and your likes really help. They help with the algorithm. They also help me understand what you guys like. So we're going to wrap it up there, and I'll see you next Wednesday. One last thing I need to do before we go is flash this. Oh, she goes well. Oh, she's scary.